So welcome to the FBC Global Church Podcast. I'm one of the global missions pastors, Scott McManigal, and Annette and I are out here in Flagstaff with a team of total 28 from FBC that have come out here to Indian Bible College to do some work projects to help the school out for the coming fall semester. And so in this episode, I get the opportunity to have President of the Bible School, Dr. Jason Koppen, join us. And after Jason gives us some information and just overview of the school and things that are going on here, we'll move on to some of the testimonies from the team members. And so thanks for joining us. I know you guys are really busy the whole week here. You've been I've hardly seen you. You guys are in constant meetings and
a lot of activity getting ready for the next semester, and
yeah, no doubt. Yeah, so introduce yourself to our listeners, who you are, what your role is here, a little bit about your family.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And,
yeah, thank you, Scott. Thanks for having me. I'm Dr. Jason Koppen. I am the rumor is I'm the president of the school. I've been in either in acting or in the official capacity for that at 13 years now. My wife, Sarah, and 4 kids. I really love living in Flagstaff and love sharing life with Native people, and are so grateful for the privilege of serving Native people in this way. My wife Sarah and I both grew up in Oregon, in the Portland, Oregon area, and don't hold that against us. But we both wanted to be in cross-cultural ministry and missions. And I have a pre-med degree. I thought I'd be a medical missionary overseas, and instead the Lord called me to local church pastoral leadership. And my wife wanted to be a missionary when she met me. I was a pastor, so she settled. Sorry, Scott, but if I can't have a missionary, a pastor will have to do for husband. So when the Lord called us here to Native ministry 13 years ago, and what we believe and hope is for the rest of our lives. We understood what all of that inclination and stirring, even from our childhood, was about for other people. And
so you were headed into medical. I thought you'd go into medical ministry or medical missions.
Yeah. My wife and I have actually been all over the world. Between the two of us, been to Africa and Australia and Europe and China and India, heart for the world. In fact, and that's part of why our presence here at Indian Bible College is, I think, so providential, because our ultimate vision is not just that Native people be healthy and thriving in Christ, but that they become a part of the Great Commission. You know, that the Great Commission is not just for Anglos or Westerners, but for all peoples all around the world. And so our dream is to see healthy, thriving Native leaders raised up through Indian Bible College that can lead healthy churches, that can someday send some of their best and brightest around the world, maybe not the tribes first, but then ultimately around the world for the sake of reaching others for the gospel.
Yeah. So probably all the schools you could have ended up at. Why Indian Bible College?
Yeah, so going back to my childhood, I've always had an instinct. My dad started training me in ministry at a young age. I've always had an instinct to go to where the need was the greatest. And a part of our calling to come to Indian Bible College, into Native ministry, was an understanding that no one has suffered in North America like the Native people. If you look at the history and understand the effects of European settlement, and manifest destiny, the reservation system, the boarding school movement, the brokenness of the Native family today as a result of all those things. No one's suffering like Native people in this land. And I think that in a lot of ways the church has kind of fumbled the ball where they're concerned, and we've sent some missionaries, but often really haven't made disciples. And oftentimes it's the approach to ministry is kind of more law-based and not grace. Right. And so it's kind of legalistic and spiritually abusive in those senses. So the plight of Native people was a huge part of that. But it's their potential that's just as exciting, or more so now. Yeah. There's an opportunity, a platform for the gospel that Native people have, that it really is our vision that Native America ceases to be a mission field and becomes part of the missions force within a few generations. And I'm still young enough, maybe, that I think I can see that in my lifetime, because it is a generational vision.
Right.
But I honestly believe there's no more strategic place I could be for the gospel, not just for Native people, but for the gospel around the world, than seeing Native people reach and disciple for Jesus, but ultimately join the global missions movement themselves.
Yeah, amen. So give us just a brief history of IBC. When did it come into existence and how and all that?
So 1958, our founder started the school with 4 Navajo men around his kitchen table and then started developing the campus after that. So about 63 years we've been in existence now. The original vision for the school was from a man named Harry Ironside, who traveled and did Bible conferences for Native peoples. He was the one that said we needed a training school for Native Americans here in the Southwest. But our founder was a distant relative of somebody, you probably haven't heard of our founder's name, his name's Gordon Fraser, but you have heard of his relative, Jim Elliott.
Oh, yeah.
And when Jim was martyred, reaching the indigenous peoples of South America, I believe 56, right?
Yeah.
That was a catalyzing event for our founder 2 years later to start a training school for the indigenous peoples of North America.
Wow. Yeah,
so it's kind of a neat tie-in to a part of a very catalyzing moment for the global missions movement when Elliot and his teammates gave their lives there. So the school historically originally was maybe mostly just focused on Navajo. In fact, you actually had to be a Navajo speaker to graduate at one time. But over the years came to realize that as the only non-denominational Bible college for Native Americans in the whole country, and that includes Canada as well, that there are many tribes that need what IBC has to offer.
Right.
And so we've had over 55 different tribes in the history of the school, and at any given time, 10 to 12 tribes. We also have some non-Native students over the years that are preparing for Native ministry, and so they're learning to reach and to lead Native people in an immersive way. And so that's a neat part of the school as well.
So through the years, you've been here like 10 years?
13
years, okay.
Yeah.
So in terms of the school's focus, emphasis, maybe even main purposes for existence, how has that morphed, over the years from its beginning until where you're at now? Give us a bit of a comparison of how things are different today here.
Well, yeah, we sometimes say get to know the new Indian Bible College. Our names are much the same. The campus is the same. A lot of the purpose and the reason we exist is the same. But our methodology and our approach to raising up Native leaders is, I think, a lot more holistic and in many ways much more Christ-focused, looking to Jesus as the model for life and ministry. As the Father sent me, so I send you, Jesus said. And so our core values and our approach to reaching and training and leading Native leaders is much more relational and holistic than I think it was for much of the school's history. And that's been a neat process to go through really over the last decade or so. To the school's kind of reinvented itself, according to one of our board members. That's the way he put it. The old schools don't usually get to reinvent themselves, but by God's grace, that's exactly what's taking place. And so we really are relational. Our institutional goals are biblical first, founded on the revelation of God through His Word. Relational second, so we can be transformational third. Always in that order. 1 + 2 = 3. The Scripture calls us to actually share life together. 1 Thessalonians 2:8. We don't just share the gospel of God, but we share ourselves as well. Paul's talking about his philosophy of ministry, and he learned that from Jesus, I believe. He's actually sharing a Christ-like approach to ministry. Jesus shared life with his apostles 24/7 for 18 months after 2 years of building those relationships before that, right?
Yeah.
So that's really our approach here. The on-campus residential Bible college is the perfect place to share life like Jesus did with the apostles. So we really look to Scripture to kind of set that pattern for that, building in a level of trust. And with the brokenness of the family and the universal experience of abuse, it's a lot of work to develop the kind of trust that students will begin to share what's really not just going on presently, but the heartache or even the secret shame or sin of their past. every one of our students has experienced some form of abuse. And so building that trust and helping them to get to know God, their identity in Christ, you know, salvation, the good news is not just what they're saved from. Yeah. There's a poverty of theology in many of the native churches that I'm saved from sin and that's all. Right. But no, it's everything we're saved to, that whole new, you know, eternal purpose, a right relationship with God, a brand new identity, and the sufficiency of the finished work of Christ.
And inheritance reserved in heaven.
Oh my goodness, yeah. It's amazing when you understand the fully orbed biblical perspective of the gospel of salvation. Right. So helping students lean into that, and we do some. So in addition to leadership training, abuse recovery, responding to the fact that the reservation is a welfare state and creates kind of a lot of entitlement dependency. That's the effects of conquering Native people. The food sources were wiped out. That's how you conquer people. So the government said, we'll do that for you. And essentially, for over 100 years now, most Native tribes are in a welfare state. And so we have to help them learn how to keep a job, learn to work as worship. It's not something we have to do, something we get to do. It's part of our creation design. And ultimately, learn some entrepreneurial skills if they're interested so they can bring business and industry back to the reservation in the name of Jesus, which is one of the most exciting things to see happen, to open doors for the gospel.
So this isn't a as you've described, this isn't a typical Bible school that's just focused on academics. You come in and you go through this, 4 years of classes and you get your grades and then you go on, but you guys are, it's more of a holistic, exactly. Just because of the mess that a lot of your students are coming out of, just family-wise and life-wise, not to mention church-wise, and like you said, the just the poverty of theology and the things that they're confused about, and then the whole welfare thing and working, and I mean, you guys are just. And so like last night, Fishy shared with our group, and she gave her testimony, and she was very transparent and very, very open. And what was interesting to us, or to me, was that she shared so she's in her 4th year, right? Going into her 4th year?
Yeah.
And so she shared what has stood out to her the most, or what has meant the most to her so far in her time here, has been what she's gotten from mending the soul and then aftercare. Like not a Romans class or another academic class, but that aspect. And it just, to me, highlights not only the need, but that you guys have really identified the real need that exists in their lives, and what you're really committed to. The big picture of what you're committed to with these students, I just think is just tremendous, and sets you apart from other Bible institutes and colleges. And
thank you. Yeah. The universal brokenness of young Native people, and 100% of our students have experienced some of those forms of abuse that Fishy, I'm sure, shared to some extent with you guys last night. Bible theology and ministry and all that training is all very important, but as important as it is, if our graduates leave still as the walking wounded, and kind of having to keep people away from who they really are. I like to joke about being a Heisman Christian or a Heisman leader, right? Where you've got to keep people away from the real you and not show them the real you, because you're hiding things. And so what a cool thing that Fishy shared that with you last night. But it is a part of that shared life, building that trust, and ultimately I think in so many ways it's as important as it is for our population. As I think we all know, it's really character, Christ-like character, that makes leaders, that makes leaders worthy of being followed. Amen. And so I really think in a lot of ways that the more Bible colleges and seminaries or ministry training schools or just local-based discipleship can really be about what's really going on, and focusing on the heart and not just the head and the hands of behavior, the more effective we're going to be at reaching and making disciples locally, globally, and so on.
Amen. So this summer, FBC, our team here this week is one of, 5, 6, 7 that you've had. I think somebody said you got another 2 more coming. why, what's the importance of these teams that come each summer?
Yeah, so another big part of our uniqueness is we believe that college debt for our students is not in their best interest. In fact, the reservations often are so impoverished, the churches are so small that if our students graduate with a lot of school debt, they won't just not gonna be able to serve the people locally, let alone go overseas and join the missions movement, as we talked about. So. So we work extremely hard to get our costs low enough that students can graduate debt-free. And that comes primarily through two sources. It's donated funds and it's donated time or labor or volunteers. And our staff all raise support or serve volunteer. And most of our facility maintenance improvements comes from friends like yourselves who believe in what we do, want to serve Native people, want to see them thriving, and want to be able to do their part and participate in that. And so instead of passing on staff salaries and facility maintenance to student tuition, God's people absorb that because of God's giving them the sense of the vision and the heart and sharing this desire. And so student costs are low. But just to be clear, we want them to be debt free, but not tuition free. Back to that responsibility and theology of work and those kinds of things. So we actually do have a price point where we don't want them to get a full ride. We want them to be able to pay their portion, about $1,000 a semester, that they can work a job and eat some food and put gas in the car and pay for their school bills. And so teams like yourself really help accomplish that, and in so many ways trying to not just maintain the campus but elevate its quality, its beauty, the excellence with which we're able to serve these students, because so many of them have been given cast-offs or hand-me-downs or the worst of what's available and not the best. And so in fact, your team this week is doing a lot of things to beautify the campus and to however that might help communicate value and affection and significance to those students. We're extremely appreciative, and thank you and thank you for being a part of this this week. And I hopefully your people also go home saying, man, there's something needed in Native America, something going on in Native America. And I know a few of the people after the Monday morning orientation were like, I did not know. Some of the young people were like, I did not know. And that was my story. Right. I did not know until I was 13 years ago. And God called me. And I'm like, how have I been so blind to the needs and to the opportunities to see Native people healthy and thriving and becoming a part of the Great Commission. So.
Well, the same thing happened to me when Jim and I came out here for the first time a couple of years ago and met with you for breakfast that first morning. And I went out there with my eyes open. I was blown away at the need. And I'm just really thankful for just the people of FBC that have made this happen, and that make it possible for us as a missions program to be a part of this and to send a team out to do this and to support in this way. And so if it wasn't for the whole body, I wouldn't have met you. We wouldn't be out here, and so really thankful for them. Just kind of in closing, I know you've got a busy schedule and more meetings to go to and prepare for. For our listeners, what would be for this coming year? What would be the main prayer requests that you would really appreciate our church just faithfully holding up before the throne of grace for, maybe for your family, for yourself, for the school in general, for the students. What would be the main things that you would really appreciate people praying about?
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for asking, because as important as the financial support is and the donated time through volunteers, it's actually prayer support that we need the most. I'm absolutely convinced that the enemy of our souls, Satan, the devil, is desperately committed to keeping Native Americans oppressed. And IBC is really on the cutting edge, on the tip of the spear, if you will, of seeing Native people set free. And so there's a lot of spiritual warfare that we deal with regularly here, staff and students. And so I do prayer for protection in those ways, that we would all walk in the light and believe and live the truth and not yield to the enemy's lies in a lot of those ways. And he's often attacking staff unity in some of those kinds of ways. But one of the main ways he's attacking a specific area for prayer is just actually in student recruitment. we see it over and over and over again. When a young Native person says, I want to go to Indian Bible College, things in their life just blow up and fall apart. The enemy does not want a young Native person with a heart for the Lord and a desire to serve his or her own people to be at IBC. And so the more people that can be a part of that, of joining us as prayer warriors in that, the more confident I am we'll see Native people resisting all of his opposition to following God's call to come here. So clarity of call from the Lord, and then the perseverance to be able to come. Truthfully, COVID hit us pretty hard, and we lost a lot of prospective students, a lot of existing students due to COVID concerns. The death rate in Native America was 4 times that of the rest of the country because of COVID. And so the impact that's had, not just at IBC, but in biblical or in any kind of higher education across the country. Native Americans have dropped out of collegiate or university pursuits more than any other ethnicity. And so we're working and praying really hard to recover from that, and we want to see our campus filled. We get phone calls all the time from churches or Native ministry leaders saying, can you send me a graduate? Can you send me an intern? Can you send me a student? And the answer is always, you know what? Our students are already all planning to go back home. Can you send us somebody and we'll train them up for you? And it's kind of a click.
Really?
They usually don't have anybody to send that they can send. They're so desperate, they have to cling to the ones they have, but they really want somebody else to do for them what they can't do for themselves. And so that is a significant prayer need. I really appreciate that request. And I want to thank you and thank your church. You know, Jesus says the gospel be preached in Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth. You know, as we know, Samaria was kind of that cross-cultural place within their own region, in their own nation that they had avoided and mistreated those people. And Jesus says, don't you dare forget Samaria, and leap over them and go into the ends of the earth. In so many ways, the Native Americans of our day are very similar to the Samaritans of Jesus' day. And I'm just so thankful that your church and an increasing number of God's people are recognizing, there's still a need here. Amen. The work is not finished amongst Native Americans, and we're going to be reaching Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria, and the ends of the earth. So thank you.
Yeah, and the work is vast. I'm just blown away at, just all over the U.S. and all the different groups. There's just tremendous need among all the different people groups. And Annette and I leave here in the morning and we're heading down to Tucson to go to the Tohono O'odham reservation and meet with a church down there, and just again, it's the same thing everywhere, just a need that exists. And so we're really thankful for IBC and the work that you guys are doing here, and excited about it, and just continue to look forward to be involved and be a help any way that we can, and really appreciate your hospitality and having us all out here this week, and I think it's been really impactful. We kind of have a 2-prong purpose in this trip, is to hopefully be a help and be a blessing to IBC and the ministry here, but also the casting vision and the discipleship of our own youth and people in our own church. And so it with talking with some of them throughout the week, I think God has really used this time to impact them as well. And so excellent. Thanks for having us and giving us the opportunity.
Well, our prayer is always, there's no question that we'll be blessed by missions teams and work teams like yourself. Our prayer is always that the team will be even more blessed than we are. So I'm encouraged to hear that. I keep joking with your team. You guys are my new favorite work team because of all that you're doing this week. Don't tell the other teams I said that. But just so appreciate your team, your folks, your church. And we were there in February. It was really nice to spend a little time with you guys in that regard. Excited to see how this relationship continues to develop.
Yep, same here. Thank you, Jason. Thank you for your time.
My privilege.
Appreciate it. Yeah, so now we'll start bringing in some of the youth next. I think we've got 4 or 5 girls that are going to come in next and share just how this week has impacted them. And again, thank you, and thank you all for tuning in.
So my name is Danielle Robinson, and I have really enjoyed the community of this trip with meals and things. We've pretty much all been sitting outside together. We have all been talking, honestly, maybe a little bit too much, a couple of late nights, but that has been really, really fun. I think I've strengthened relationships with all of these girls, and as well as with people that I had pretty much never talked to in the youth group before. So I thought that that was really cool how community focused we all were, and how we all tried to get to know each other when we had pretty much never talked before. And then from the trip, I was pretty much prepared to be very physically active and have a lot of hard physical labor, but I wasn't really prepared for how Satan would try to attack me and get me to sin, because he does not want us here. And I wasn't prepared for how intense it felt like the battle was. I'm done.
My name is Olivia Webster, and one of the best parts of this trip, I think, was how lighthearted it is. I feel like I was preparing to just like be really hard labor work, go, 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 but like it's just you work wherever you're needed, and you get to also socialize while doing it and just have fun, try new things and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed that. And another part of it was what I took away from this trip was I think I want to do something else to help Native Americans in the future. I think God gave me a heart for people in need and Native Americans as well.
My name is Sophia Applegate. Something that I've taken away from this trip is just like how cool it is to see God's love in people, because like I'm one of those types of people when I'm working, I really just want to do like my way, and I'm very like particular, and like I thought I was gonna be more aggravated this trip, being like, oh, don't do that, do this, or I'm typically one to work alone, but it was just, I actually really enjoyed working with people this trip, because like it's just so cool to see people to have like a real heart to serve, and I think that has just really spoken to me to just really see God's love in people, and I think God gave me peace and not being too aggravated with people. I think it was really, really good, so that's something I've taken away with this trip.
My name is Elaine Robinson, and I've just really grown in this trip. I mean, we came out here exhausted, and I think it kind of progressed, but during, like Danielle said, during all of this, it grew us, and it was interesting to see how much we were led by God, and just able to dive more into His Word every night because of it, and just glean from it and take it all in. I've really enjoyed seeing the people here. The people are different. I guess I had one image of what a Native American was like. Coming here really tore that image apart. I'd never thought, I guess, in that way. And it was just interesting to be able to witness to the people and know that just the neighbors down the road are watching us. So it's in the neighborhood, and as we're working, we can see cars slowly drive by and people walking their dogs and whatnot, and they're staring at us. They're like, as they're driving by, because it's really an interesting thing to see a whole bunch of teenagers painting a building or tearing down a tree. And I'm just so glad that we were able to not only witness to the Native Americans on the campus, but also the people in the neighborhood, and show God's love that way. And so I'm very excited for it. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, so my name is Kirsten Kekik, and some of the things that really stood out to me about this trip have really involved, honestly, a lot of the planning process. I was very involved in helping to plan what we were doing on the trip and how people were rooming together and things like that. And we've had a few plan changes with projects and things, but it's been really nice to see everybody still be able to come together and just to help minister to the students and the faculty at Indian Bible College. And kind of like Elaine was saying, just the general neighborhood there have definitely been a few very slow drivers driving past us. So, yeah. So that's been really cool. And then even with funding for the trip, it was really cool to see the church body come together to support the trip. So that was really a huge blessing. And then for me personally, I really enjoyed, we got to hear the testimony of a student who attends the college yesterday, and some of the stuff that she's gone through in her life have been like really difficult. And so kind of like Aline was saying earlier, it's you kind of know, like, okay, this is why we're coming down here, this is why we're helping the college, because they're working with people who have just had a really rough time in life, and like helping them be able to overcome that and then be able to be witnesses for Christ. But until you actually really get to hear and talk to some of the people, like, it's kind of just like a statistic rather than a personal thing. And so that was really cool for me, just to kind of hear that, and then of course to be able to enjoy time with people from the youth group and stuff. So yeah. So
in this next segment, we got a couple of the young men that have come along on the trip, and so guys, why don't you introduce yourselves and just share with us what you've gotten from the trip and what has stood out to you, and maybe things that God has laid on your heart.
Hi, my name is Timothy Johnson. I just graduated from the youth group here at FBC. This is my second mission trip that I've gone on with FBC, and this one's been really special because I can see the excitement from the staff that works here at IBC. When the president was talking, he's been doing this for a while now, and he still is just so energetic and excited about the work that they're doing here. So being able to work at the school and kind of feel that energy has been really great. The Navajo and all the other Native Americans are great people. We got to hear a testimony from one of them last night, and it's been a great opportunity to serve.
Awesome.
My name's Elijah Gordon. I'm a senior here at the FBC Youth Group, and one of the things that really stood out to me is the fact that you can hear, these people need this, or these people are going through this, but you really don't know until you see it. It doesn't stand out. It's just a piece of paper until you actually go there and live it. So it's one of those things that was really interesting and stood out. Because, you hear about the hardships and the things that they're going through, but then once you actually, see it, and this is just the tip of the iceberg for so many other things. So it's just kind of, eye-opening to see the rest of the world.
Awesome.
Well, my name's Clayton Gay. I think one of the main things from this trip was it's very hot. It's very hot here, but it's been very eye-opening to see different perspectives of the staff and the people that live here, and everyone, like everybody else said, they're fire to get to go home and share on their res to their people and try and get them to light their fire. And so that's been one of the main things for me, but also coming from our group to see everyone's willingness to serve. And we just boom, project after project, it doesn't matter what it is, we just all come together, and we've really been able to establish I think a good connection here. So I've liked that.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining in and just sharing what this trip has meant to you. So we've got two more members of the team here with us to introduce themselves and share what just some takeaways from the trip. Anything God has impressed on your heart or taught you during this time? Anything you'd like to share with our listeners?
I'm Michaela, and I think one thing that has really stood out to me on this trip was that one of the students from IBC shared their testimony, and it's just really interesting to see how different their lives are from ours, and it's just really cool to see how God moves in their lives.
I'm Joshua Stewart, and one of the things that's really stood out to me was the fact that how open she was yesterday, the student, and just despite the things she went through, how open she was about it.
Yeah, awesome. All right, anything that, like, have you guys ever been on a missions trip before?
No, I have
No.
not.
No.
So, like, what kind of expectations did you have coming into this trip, and then how have they proven out to be different?
I think it turned out to be pretty much what I had imagined it to be.
Huh.
It's definitely a lot more work than I would have thought, but I've enjoyed every minute of it.
I've had several siblings go on mission trips before, so I kind of knew what we were going to come up is like do lots of work, hand work, painting, lots of that. So I honestly really didn't have much expectations except for doing lots of hard work.
Yeah. So I know you guys started off the week with an orientation that Dr. Koppen gave with you guys, and any of the information that he gave about the need that exists among Native Americans, and just the need that exists out there. Has any of that stood out to you, or shocking, or anything in that way?
I think the abuse rates were very shocking to me because I knew it existed, but I didn't know how much of their population was affected by that.
Yeah, right.
Just how many unreached Native Americans there are in our country, and how our country is like one of the biggest Christian populations, but yet the Native Americans are living right here in our country, and we've not touched them pretty much at all.
Yeah, it's been very eye-opening for me as well, and so thank you guys for just being a part of this week and being a part of the team and all your hard work and effort, and thanks for sharing with folks. Okay, so we're moving on to the senior members of our team that have been here this week, some of the team leaders, and so introduce yourselves and just share with our listeners what has stood out to you from this week, either about the team or the ministry that's going on here, or some of the needs that you've learned that exist among Native Americans in general.
My name is Christopher Voicey, and when I heard about this opportunity, I thought it would be a great opportunity for myself and my family to do this together, and I was excited to be able to to serve. And as this trip evolved, prior, just talking with Mr. McManigal and John and everybody, I had no idea the need that this community has, and it made me more passionate to help out. And it's been quite an experience just to be here and to be working amongst just this wonderful team, and it's been great to get to know everybody. And I kind of don't want to go back home. I'm having just a wonderful time, enjoy doing the work, and I feel disconnected from home at the moment, which is exactly what I was hoping. So it's been great.
Nice.
I'm Dawn Voicey. I came on the missions trip hoping to serve more. I'd always wanted to do missions in college. Looked at doing Urbana, things like that. I hadn't been able to, just financially and stuff. And now we're in the position that we could come, and it's been awesome to get to know people and work and serve.
I'm Sherry Mayo, and when Daniel came 2 years ago to the FBC Missions Conference, the statistics and the information he shared just, it rocked me. And so when we learned we would be able to come this year, it was something that I really wanted to be a part of. I've worked with youth group, junior high youth group for years in the past, and had taken a little break, and so was excited to come back and join a lot of these kids that I've watched grow up, and it's always a blessing to watch them set aside, their choices for summer and come and serve. Just to see the need here, especially with local situations of flooding, to really get an idea of what they need, and to support a ministry that is helping the Native Americans learn what they need to so they can go back and support and enrich their communities, which is so needed. So it's been great to watch the kids work together and come together as a team, some of which who didn't really know each other, but then also just see them serving and see the impact we can have to help everyone and to help the community as a whole, and how we can go forward doing that more and having a better understanding of that.
Yeah, that point about the youth, the way that they've pulled together and worked together has just really stood out to me. This team is really, the work ethic has just been second to none. And Annette and I came a day and a half late or whatever, and 2 days late, and just what was already accomplished, when we got here was just amazing. And so I think the team has been a great blessing to the school, and it's been awesome to be a part of that. A lot of times, when we're going to a place where we've never been before, and we kind of have, an idea of what to expect or what it might be like. For you guys coming here, expectations you may have had coming here, and then coming here and experiencing it, has anything stood out to you as kind of being very different than what you imagined, or anything like that?
As far as being different than what I imagined, it's I guess when we initially went through the orientation, I was pretty much I think I imagined IBC not to be as developed as it is, but it's pretty awesome over the years how different groups have pulled together to make IBC what it is, and just the ministry that they do, and the way God works through them. It's just pretty amazing. And it's, when your first year of a college that only has 25 students, you're thinking, wow, that's really not very big, but it sounds like those 25 students are going to be extremely impactful in the community. Yeah. So, or at least that's preparation. So, yeah, that's my thought.
And it's not just strict academics, because of the emotional and some of the trauma from the abuse that such a high percentage of Native Americans have experienced. It, like, this school has to help people through, is another thing that has just stood out to me in the past, or just learning that about this place and the ministry that's going on here. So
it seems like they're preparing their students like no other school could prepare their students to go out in the community to be impactful.
Yeah.
One of the things that surprised me is I didn't realize how self-sufficient they are. They're not funded by an organization, but also that their staff raises their own support. All their professors raise their own support. That the school is completely debt-free, including all the buildings they've bought over the years. That was just huge to me, because I think that's just so important as they're trying to care for people, but they're doing so much, and yet they're doing it all just based on how God's provided from the different groups and peoples and individuals they've met. And the staff and their willingness to come, knowing they're coming to be professors, but they're coming to raise their own support and take care, provide for themselves as they're reaching out and caring for these students. So that was huge. And the way they're helping the Native Americans not be able to do school as close to debt-free as possible, because they have them help work, and so it helps offset things. The fact that they're going to get, a 4-year degree with, I think he said it's about $1,000 a year of their costs by the time it's all said and done. That's huge. As having college-age students, that's huge to allow, because that allows anyone and everyone from the Native Americans to be able to come if they don't have this huge price tag over their head that they can't even, wrap around how they would do that. And so I thought that was great to hear, and really impacted me, and just the emotional and physical and spiritual support that they give their students. They're not just giving them a degree and walking them out the door, but they're healing them so that, Fishy said it last night, I think so well, I have to be healed so that I can go care for others, because without my healing, I can't effectively impact people. And I thought that is so huge. And that's what IBC is providing for them.
Yeah.
Relationships and community and things. So that was huge.
Yeah. Amen. Well, from the FBC Global Missions Committee, we really appreciate you guys and really want to thank you for taking time away from your families and your schedules and work, and to come and help lead this team and all that you guys have done to really make this week possible. So thanks for serving in this way and being a part of helping us build our relationship with IBC and just being a part of what we're doing. So yeah, thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for letting us.
All right, so we have more remaining members of our senior team members, team leaders here. And so guys, just introduce yourselves and share with our listeners just what stood out to you on this trip. What has stood out to you about the team? Each of you have brought some of your own kids. So what has stood out to you about the kids? Maybe their work ethic, your own kids. The ministry that's going on here at IBC, just anything that God has laid on your hearts during this week.
Okay. I'm Michael Stewart. This has been an adventure for me. I really enjoyed coming down here, coming to IBC, and hearing about their ministry. Last night we had a student eat dinner with us, Felicia, who goes by Fishy, and she shared her testimony. And some of the things that stood out to me about her testimony was just the darkness that's in the Native American community, and the abuse that's happened, but also that some of that comes from the boarding schools that many generations of Native American children were sent to these boarding schools instead of staying with their parents and developing relationships there. And that's really stood out to me. And I came here with my son Josh. Josh, I think, has been learning. And last night he said to me, just something really special for me was, "I'm glad you came with me, Dad." So.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Well, my name is Derek Kekik, and I came with two of my children. One, our oldest, Kirsten, is one of the youth leaders for the missions team in the youth program. So I had heard about this and the planning of it throughout the year. Didn't know if it would work out for me to be able to come, and at the end it did work out that I was able to come. I've enjoyed, like everyone, being here with my kids, but seeing the potential and hearing about it. I had never really known anything. I realize now about the Native American culture and or their plight throughout our country's time frame. The damage done by the attempted colonization, that they call it, by Christians, and the generational issues that has caused. But hearing about the potential, I think for me was the biggest thing, the potential ministry that the Native culture can have, not just within their own culture, but because they're Native groups and tribal groups, the impact that they can have worldwide, because much of the world is a tribal land or a tribal group, and they can relate to that culture automatically. So I think that while the depravity is huge, and the depression and the outlook on the reservations and within the tribes, the actual potential that God can use, and then hearing how Satan wars against their culture specifically, because I think they're right, the potential global impact that they can have is there. I think for FBC, partnering up with IBC just fits very well, and I can see it firsthand now here, as opposed to just hearing about it back home at the church or from my children.
That's awesome. Yeah, so John and Holly, you guys have been the main team leaders. You're the ones that have been holding all the sessions and meetings in preparation for this trip, and done the lion's share of the planning, and especially the planning of the projects, and pulling all that together, and material lists and all that stuff. Really appreciate your work. Really appreciate what you guys have done. What are you guys coming away with?
Well, for me personally, I think that this is probably one of the most worthwhile efforts that our church and any church, could be involved in. It's a shame and a great tragedy, the fact that the Native Americans have been neglected spiritually, and then before that abused spiritually, for so long. And I think that what IBC is doing here is absolutely amazing. If there was any doubt in anyone's mind, last night's testimony from the one student was absolutely, just amazing. And for me, watching our kids' faces that we brought with us, the amount of sobriety that it brought to them, and the realization on their faces, and we've got our two children, Clayton and Chloe, with us, and I was sitting there watching their faces and the nonverbal responses to her testimony, and you could just see some things clicking, like some of our personal conversations within our family. You could see so many of the just nonverbal cues, like light bulbs going off. And so, I can only hope and pray that we've been able to touch some of the people's lives here, a fraction of what I feel like we're walking away with. And I hope that we are able to continue this type of effort, because Christ didn't only just feed people's spiritual needs. He fed them when they were hungry, and he healed them when they were sick, and took care of their physical needs as well. And I think that was just a small portion of what we were able to do. And Holly and I both had the opportunity to go to a Christian school, and so the one thing that we can kind of personally relate to is when you're at a Christian school, it's almost like you're in a safe bubble. And when you leave that bubble, and while you're inside that bubble, you're spiritually just ramped up and ready to go out into the world and make a huge difference, and you're constantly just on fire, like Isaiah talked about. You got fire in your bones, ready to go out and conquer the world. But then when you leave that bubble and you get out into the real world, and the amount of sin and just tragedy and everything, it kind of hits, and you can spiritually crash very easily. And so what FBC is hoping to do to be able to help disciple and continue that relationship with students after they've left IBC, to me, that's the most important thing I think that we could possibly focus on. And so I love what we're planning on doing here, because they're already doing what they need to do. And it's like, how can FBC or any other church be able to fit in? Then, there's plenty of opportunities. So
a lot of times when you're going on a trip, going to a place you haven't been before, to visit a ministry, or even a vacation. A lot of times we have expectations about what we think it's going to be like, what we're going to experience. So coming here, were there any expectations or thoughts that you had about what you might experience here that has, maybe turned out to be different, that has stood out to you, or anything about the school or the ministry, or?
Yeah, haven't had the opportunity to visit, before, personally. Kind of already had a lot of, expectations. but we've had the opportunity to participate in lots of service projects and stuff in the past, but not exactly in this type of capacity. And so, there was a lot of a learning curve for us, because project lists changed, and
kids worked a lot faster than we expected.
yeah, and that's something else too. And I will say that that's awesome point is, we had an idea of project list we wanted to do before we got here, and that's what we kind of planned for. Because of all the flash flooding and stuff, there was a lot of other needs that had kind of taken priority just within the last week. And so we had to shift gears and change up projects and kind of adapt and overcome. And absolutely none of it would have been possible if it hadn't have been for, 19 teenagers that we brought with us, and absolutely doing anything that was asked of them, and, working. I've worked with teenage groups, from several different states in the past, but I will say that I was absolutely blown away by what our teenagers did. I mean, they absolutely went above and beyond and worked their rear ends off and accomplished more. I mean, today's only Thursday, and we've kind of already blown through a lot of our project list. Just by Tuesday afternoon, we'd already blown through so much, it was just astounding, So the fact that we were able to accomplish a lot more than was anticipated, that was a huge thing. And it's also allowed us to, try to tackle some things that we weren't originally planning on.
Right.
And so I think that has been, of great benefit to the school. But again, I think personally we're walking away from a greater benefit than anyone because of what this has done spiritually. And with 19 teenagers, you often see cliques and people that not congregating well. Everybody goes to their own little corners and stuff. And some of the group that I've seen do that back at home, I've seen those barriers kind of torn down. I've seen all of the students interacting with each other and interacting well, everyone working well together. So, I think there's a level of collaboration and cohesion that 19 of our students, from FBC are going to walk away from that they would have never had if it hadn't been for this. So.
Yeah.
They all have something in common now. They serve together, which makes them a stronger team. And definitely being from such a large youth group, now they all know each other a lot better than they did during the Sunday morning class sessions that we did with them when they all just kind of sat in their own corners.
Yeah.
It was really cool seeing them all work together.
So is there a plan for them to maybe go back and present to the rest of the youth group what they've experienced, or?
Yes, we haven't, with all the other changes that's been going on at church and stuff, and people, shifting gears and moving, different hats being moved around. We haven't identified when, but, that's what I know Caleb and I had talked about was hopefully the opportunity to be able to kind of go back and present to the congregation. Because, again, this is one of the most worthwhile efforts that we've personally ever seen. And I hope that we can, make that much more of an impact on the rest of our congregation. Because having that large of a body of Christ, it's a lot of the lessons learned from just this trip. If we implement that same mentality even in our own community, the level of reach of presenting God's grace and mercy to our community, could be endless. So.
Yeah. Amen. Well, from the FBC Global Missions team standpoint, we really, really appreciate you guys, the sacrifice you've made, just taking time away from family and work and to come out here and spend this week. We really, this trip for us, we really have a kind of a two-pronged purpose in it. One is hopefully there's been some impact in, adding to the discipleship of our own people, of our youth and our own people, but also, what you guys have done as a team, I think to help build our rapport and relationship as a church with IBC is just, it's huge. And it's, it's something that we as a missions committee alone couldn't have done. And it's, it makes us really, really value the whole body and see how, ministry really is, it's a work of the body. It's not just a work of the few. It really requires the body to be working together, and so we really appreciate it. And our goal in wanting to build a relationship, really, an institution like this is a model that we're really not following anywhere else we work around the world. Our focus is always with the church. But as has been alluded to, the need that exists among Native American ministries, for the establishment of the church, this is just a great place that we're really hoping God raises up some Native American co-workers, people that we could partner with, that we could help, that come through here, receive a foundation, in biblical studies, and plus all the, like Fishy was saying last night, all the help with the trauma healing and stuff that many of them require. As some of them have a heart to return and reach their own people, we're just really hoping that, creates opportunities for us to draw alongside of them and help them, go on to this next steps and, what God has for them. And so what you guys have done this week has been a huge part of, really helping us build rapport and relationship here. And so thank you. Thanks for coming. Thanks for all that you've done and all the time you've put into this and preparing and then coming out here and just giving yourselves this week. So we really appreciate it.